Folks, it is Steve the Drummer at YouTube.com, where we're bringing yesterday's music into tomorrow. We are continuing our saga, F Note versus Roland. In the last video, I was comparing the hi-hats between F Note and Roland, the digital hi-hats from Roland, and then the proprietary F Note hi-hats. In this edition, I am going to compare the snare drums between the Roland drum set and the F Note drum set. And obviously, for Roland, this is another digital pad. This is also a very nuanced instrument. The F Note drum did not feature a digital pad or a proprietary snare drum. However, I want to say that their snare drum has like somewhere between 8 and 10 or 11 sensors in it. It's got four sensors basically around the drum, and then 4 in the rims, and then another separate side-mounted rim click sensor as well. And so, you know, as we were discussing in the first video, the hi-hats are the most nuanced part of your drum set, a very important part of your drum set. I would have to say, as far as rock music, pop music, country music, any type of music like that, your snare drum is also equally as important, and perhaps even more so. It's the backbeat of the song, it's the backbone of the song. And so anyhow, I'm going to do a comparison here, much like the last video. No hot licks here. Obviously, I'm not the guy from Drum Tech. I'm just going to sit here and bash away on the pads a little bit and just kind of give you a comparison between the two products, and then maybe lead to some conclusions about why I made the decisions that I made. Anyhow, here we go. First up, we've got the Roland digital snare drum. So, as also from the hi-hat video, this is the same deal here. I'm not doing any fancy recording stuff. Basically, it's just straight out of the module into the iPad through an iRig as the medium to transfer that. And then, like I said, I'm using straight module sounds for the Roland drum set. I'm using just the acoustic one drum set, and I did go in and do a little bit of adjusting on the EQ on that drum. I went to eDrum Workshop and watched a series of videos on how to improve your Roland module sounds. So far, all I've really started to mess with a little bit is just the EQ, and primarily just on the snare drum and the kick drum. But that's really the only change that I've made. It's straight up stock sounds out of the Roland kit and out of the out of the F Note kit. I think that was the 70s coded, it was either the 70s coded kit or the 70s power classic rock. I can't remember the name specifically. Like I said, I had recorded that several weeks ago. I want to talk a little bit about the selection of why did I try to play the parts that I tried to play. One of the things I wanted to do was a Swiss Army triplet, and the reason being, in my opinion, on electric drums, especially the snare drum, I guess you could say the same about the toms, the module recognizes flams and it recognizes alternating strokes, but it has a hard time sometimes of picking up the differentiation between the two of playing a flam and then you know, incorporating that into like a Swiss Army triplet where you're playing flam, roll, or stroke, stroke, flam, stroke, stroke. Sometimes, in my experience, and this could be just my ignorance as far as settings are concerned, and maybe there's some things I could do in the settings that would make this cleaner, but that's a struggling point, in my opinion, for electronic drums, is to discern between flams and just regular strokes. And so don't hold these recordings necessarily 100% against the module, because a lot of time I don't do a lot of rudimental type stuff or Swiss Army triplets or stuff like that. So mine aren't that great, but that was one of the reasons that I wanted to put that in there, was to try to demonstrate whether the module could react to that or not. And then the other thing was I did like a little bit of buzz roll, and once again, I'm not that great at that stuff, but that, in my experience, buzz rolls and like press roll type things is where you get into the most machine gunning. And I've got to say that honestly, with the Roland sample that I just did, I was impressed that it really didn't machine gun. It really sounded, kind of like a snare drum and a roll. So let's listen to some F note snare drum, and then we'll come back with some conclusions. So my conclusions on the snare drums. Once again, I think F Note has really good samples, but here's where I think maybe the rubber meets the road a little bit for me. And the type of music that I primarily play, pop rock and rock and maybe country twinged rock and stuff like that. The snare drums are really, really important instrument in the drum set, and in my opinion, the Roland snare drum has what I would call more presence. And I think when I look at the covers that I recorded, the 18 months that I used the F Note drums versus the time prior to using F Note that I had the Roland drum set, and since I've gotten the Roland drum set back, combination of the power of the module, the power of the editing capabilities and stuff like that, for me, it is easier to generate a snare drum sound that really cuts through the music and really has what I would call good presence in the song. There were a lot of recordings that I had with F Note that I felt like I had a great snare drum sound, but it was kind of washed out in the mix. It didn't really form the backbeat, the meat that I was really looking for to drive the song. And then the second thing, this is also in Roland's favor. I think that this is a little bit maybe of an abstract example. Let's say that you were buying acoustic drums and not electronic drums, and let's say you bought like a $600 or $700 acoustic drum set on the one hand, and then you bought like a $5,000 acoustic drum set on the other hand. And a primary difference between a lower end acoustic drum set and a higher end acoustic drum set is the ingredients that go into making that drum set. The quality of the wood for one, but also the quality of the hardware, and in the case of the snare drum, the rim. And so when I've played acoustic drums in the past, and I've got some really nice acoustic snare drums now, but when I've played acoustic snare drums in the past that were less expensive, the rims bend. I mean, I had old snare drums where me just sitting there clanking the 2 and 4, I actually bent the rim of the snare drum. And I felt like that was a similar case with the F Note snare drum, where the rims were really kind of flexing and bending, and lugs were detuning very rapidly, and that's not the case at all with the Roland digital snare drum. I feel like it's a much more robust product. It's much more durably built. Now, granted, I just got this one out of the box, but I did play one previously for probably, I'd have to go back and look, but probably the better part of 2 or 3 years, and I had absolutely no issues whatsoever with that drum whatsoever, and I'm anticipating a similar experience with that. So there you have it. Once again, I kind of feel like F Note has really good samples, and if I were just going to play the drums and you were just going to listen to the drums, F Note would probably in a lot of cases take the lead. But when I start mixing the drums with music, which is what I want to do, I'm not a technician. I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and play a 2-hour drum solo. I'm going to play along with music. When I try to take that instrument and put it in the context of music, in my mind, that's where Roland starts to pull ahead. These are my conclusions. These are my thoughts. You probably are coming to some different thoughts or different conclusions, and I'm sure we can discuss it in the comments below. I hope you have a great day. Look forward to seeing you soon, and we'll be coming back soon with more comparisons of F Note and Roland. Take care.